Hi, Chris Satullo here from Draw the Lines, and today I'm with Joseph Amadei and Rachel Karp, who are two theater artists from Pittsburgh who are about to do a new version of their long-running interactive theater piece, Packing and Cracking, as part of the Philadelphia Fringe Festival. Thanks, Joseph. Rachel.
Thanks for having us. Hi.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what Packing and Cracking is and what people might expect if they decide to take the leap and be part of it.
Yeah, Packing and Cracking is an interactive map-making event about gerrymandering. It's fully participatory, so we lead the audience through 13 short, fun, non-competitive games to learn about maps, the drawing of district lines on maps, the manipulation of districting known as gerrymandering, and the way gerrymandering affects us every day in our government and the issues that we care about.
So why gerrymandering? Of all the hot topics across our land that you could do a theater piece about, why gerrymandering?
Well, we think gerrymandering is like if you care about any issue, gerrymandering is connected to it. It's this sort of like behind the scenes governmental issue that sort of affects how issues are represented and who is representing those. And so we want to like bring that to the forefront, particularly in Pennsylvania, which back when the maps were redrawn in 2011 was one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. And so we want to like raise awareness about that, encourage people to like take action to like engage locally and statewide with gerrymandering and the lines that exist in their communities. And so that the maps that are going to be redrawn next year can be fairer.
So for a redistricting nerd such as myself, of course, the topic of gerrymandering just pulsates with drama. It just throbs with fascination. But you have to pull together a piece that's going to hold people's interest and attention for a long time about something they know very little about. So how did you go about figuring out how to shape this piece?
We both have, so Joseph and I both have a background in education. Joseph is currently a professor at Chatham University. I don't know why I'm telling this about you.
Yep.
And we both were at Carnegie Mellon and we taught. So the show is not itself a lesson, but we approached it, how do you scaffold it like a lesson? And I think the most important thing that we want to start with the people in the room and making it a personal experience. So we don't start with maps. We don't start with the way that people usually think about maps and district lines and getting too far into that. We start with like, who are you and where are the places you've been? And what if you draw a map about that? And that map is as valid as any other map that you're going to look at today. And so we center the audience first, and then we layer more and more information on top of that.
Yeah, let me start the same way you just did, then, or at least move to that. Who are you? Where have you been? And what made you passionate about this topic?
I'm a creator director of political performance, and I first heard about gerrymandering when I was at Carnegie Mellon for grad school, getting my MFA in theater directing. And in 2017, there was a Supreme Court case, Gill v. Whitford, that people thought would maybe really have an impact on gerrymandering in the country. And that was the first time that I heard about it. And ended up not having any impact. But it's what got my attention up, and I wanted to know more about it. And in researching it, I learned how pervasive it is and how destructive it can be, and wanted a lot more people to know about it and to feel like they could do something about it.
Yeah, Joseph, same question for you. What's sort of your personal path to this result?
Well, I'm a new media artist, a theater designer, an activist, and an educator. So a lot of my work sort of intersects with technology, politics, and like meaning making. And I first came to gerrymandering from the great state of North Carolina, where I grew up. I was in at UNC Chapel Hill in undergrad in like the early 2000 teens. And there was like these big cuts to like the public funded university that I was at. And I was like, what's going on? We're like a very purple state. And I was like trying to figure it out. And there was these like supermajorities, Republican supermajorities that were like passing this like legislation. I was like, that doesn't seem like the sort of like consensus of the state. And looking into that, I eventually found out that North Carolina, like Pennsylvania, had some of the most gerrymandered maps in the country as well after the 2010 census and when they were all redrawn across the country in 2011. So I've only lived in gerrymandered states for much of my adult life.
So you've done this piece IRL with people actually sitting in the room with you and being able to see the various multimedia elements that are part of it. But now we're all living in pandemic world. How have you had to reshape the way the thing works to fit? Is it being done on Zoom or how's it being done?
So it's done on Zoom because Zoom allows for the best collaboration of many people.
Mm-hmm.
But we play all these games, and we're building this custom website to house all of our games. So it's a mix of Zoom and something that hopefully is less ubiquitous than what Zoom has become for our lives. In terms of translating it from in-person to online, we basically had to reconceive of the whole project just because it's such a different way of engaging with people and engaging with information. So there are parts of the content that are the same, but the way that they're delivered and packaged, we had to play test and figure out all anew.
And in the before times, it was a sort of like people sit around tables with each other, they talk to each other, they draw with markers, they pass markers and paper and maps back and forth. So clearly like that's just like the farthest thing from what's possible right now. So it's like, you know, yeah, like Rachel said, it's like, how do we translate that experience on the online and sort of like, how do we have people sort of draw around an internet piece of paper, a digital piece of paper together, or like, yeah, sort of like really figuring out how to play games in a digital space and sort of like the way that our attention works on a computer versus in a room and sort of thinking about those things.
Have you had a chance to try the digital version out yet, or is this the debut with Fringe Festival?
We did it online in April. We were in rehearsal to do the in-person version in March when everything shut down. And then we worked with the organization where we were gonna do the show in person to translate it online. And that went really well. And it was sort of, we did it in this flurry of, you know, what's happening to our world. This is something that we can spend our time doing and feel like we're maybe doing something positive. And now we've had a lot more time after that April performance to really go back, strengthen things, build. So the time we did it in April, we didn't have this website, and the website really helps centralize all the games and make it a more enjoyable experience. We've been building that, and that is a really good addition.
And also, in the first version, it was just Rachel and I. We were not only the directors and designers, but we performed in it. We like were our own stage managers. We like were our own technicians, our own researchers. Like we did every single part of it, like in a very like short amount of time in a small space. And this time we've sort of been able to bring in other actors to sort of help facilitate the experience, sort of a web developer to help us make this like sort of game page that people can play games on, and a stage manager to help us keep track of everything. So we have a much like a larger team and hopefully a more rich experience because of that.
What do you hope the participants take away from the experience?
We hope that they fully understand gerrymandering and how it relates to the issues they care about, and also how it relates to whatever community they live in. And we, slight spoiler alert, at some point, at different points in the show, we let people really look at the lines of the districts that they're in. And that can be a really revelatory, confusing experience. That's what my experience of it was, to really get in there and be like, why am I connected to a community that I think is so far away from me? And hopefully that activates them to make the next round of maps look different and really reflect the communities that they want. And we give them a bunch of resources so that they can really make that happen.
Okay, so one way I came to be aware of your work is because you got aware of my work and joined the Draw the Lines mapping competition and ended up being winners, being the regional champs out in Pittsburgh. So how did that experience of actually digging in and making your own maps affect sort of your grasp of the issue or the way you do the piece?
Joseph and I hosted a map drawing party after we learned about Draw the Lines because we were very excited, and we sort of doubled it as a bit of a fundraiser for our show. This was a while ago.
10 or 12 of our friends together, and we all made maps. We had a gerrymandering themed cocktail. It was a good time.
And everyone who came had a pretty easy time drawing maps, and Joseph and I were drawing a map, and we thought it was so hard. Like, we were the only ones who didn't really finish during the fundraiser itself. And it's possible that we knew more of the nuances involved, and so we're paying a little bit more attention to them. I think a big takeaway is that drawing a map is hard, and there's someone that we interviewed at the Public Interest Law Center in Philadelphia, Ben Geffen, and he talks about how there's no one way to draw a map. And that's something that drawing it myself really reinforced, that there's so many ways to do it, and there's so many compelling, conflicting interests, but it's so worth the time to figure it out, because knowing what a fair map needs to do is really important.
Yeah, and I think one takeaway, I thought it did take us a long time. We kept changing things and moving lines and trying to find out what these communities near these lines we're drawing actually were. And I think the main takeaway was it would be really hard to draw a perfect map that would meet every possible justice-oriented need out there. But it was very clear that it would be very easy to draw a map that was more fair than the actual maps in use.
Right, and as you saw in a meeting we both were on last week, we've toted up the numbers of all the citizen mappers, more than 1,200 of them, who have drawn maps through Draw the Lines. And according to just one of the metrics, the metric for compactness, basically how unjagged and how smooth and together and logical your districts are, that 2011 map that you've referenced for Pennsylvania has a compactness score of about 18, and the lower the worse, the closer to 100 the better. And all the citizen maps have a score of almost double, average score of almost double, 33. And no small number of citizen mappers have achieved scores in the 40s, even as high as 50. All of which are infinitely better than the politicians in the room were managed to do in 2011. And just kind of shows that if you stick with it, you can do a much better job than the usual suspects. I will bet at your party, your friends who were so quick had terrible compactness scores, Rachel and Joseph. And
it's likely,
sure an outstanding one. They were just slapping it together. You were being... in a perfect world of truth and justice, which alas, we do not live in, but in that perfect world, what would you like to see happen around redistricting next year in 2021 after the census results are released and they do it for real?
I mean, lots of things. I'd like to see some legislation passed to sort of make this next process more transparent as possible. And then moving beyond that, some constitutional amendments potentially that implement a sort of citizens, a group of citizens to run the map drawing process and take the sort of map drawing out of the hands of politicians who, no matter where their ideological leanings lay, they are still vested in their own power and their own interests. So,
right. And for anyone watching this, the legislation that Joseph refers to, at least in terms of making the process a little more open, does exist in Harrisburg. It's called LACRA, the Legislative Congressional Reapportionment Act. And if you want to see what Joseph just described happen, you should contact your local legislator and tell them to vote for LACRA. Rachel?
I would love to see the word that comes to mind is citizen uprising, but I don't mean it in any kind of violent way, but just really if it's safe, you know, everyone going to Harrisburg and like making sure their politicians draw maps in this transparent way, whether that legislation is passed or not. And when there are public comment periods about the maps that are drawn or hearings where people can speak, everyone going to testify and demanding for change or whatever they think should be right. And just a ton of attention and pressure at the citizens level.
So no Hawaiian shirts, but lots of protest, right? Okay.
Sounds good.
So tell everybody out there exactly how they can participate in Packing and Cracking as part of the Fringe Festival.
Well, so you can get a direct link from our website, packingandcracking.com. And right at the top there, there's a link to get tickets. We open this Wednesday, the 23rd. Is that the right date?
Yeah, we should take that again. Such a basic question. Yeah, you want to do it again?
Well, we're gonna leave it in because doing it this way is far more endearing than just nailing it. So start all over.
Well,
again.
I wanted to find the direct Fringe Arts ticket link. So if you go to fringeart.com/event/packing-and-cracking,
We'll put it in there for you.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. If that's too complicated, going to packingandcracking.com, it'll get you there.
There you go.
Yeah, and we have 3 performances, September 23rd, 27th, and 30th.
Great.
And it's a Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday. Just Sunday.
So I highly urge all of you to do it. I'll be there, I think, on Sunday night. I'll see you there.
Sounds good.
See if I can keep up with everything that you're talking about. But again, Joseph,
You're going to know a lot, yeah.
Joseph Avenay, Rachel Karp, Packing and Cracking, Philadelphia Fringe Festival. Be there and help slay the gerrymander. Thanks very much and hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.